Prison abolition is one of my favorite things to talk about, and it's been getting a ton of press recently. I think this is mostly because there have been a bunch of smear campaigns targeted at DSA candidates, where their tweets from the 2020 protests were being put under a microscope, and there was a lot of talk about police abolition. Of course, since they're politicians, they're dancing around the issue now, and being extremely careful with their words. But many of them were still able to win their elections in the face of these kind of attacks, and I think it says a lot about the appetite for these kind of ideas right now. Daria Liza in New York was one of the main targets of these attacks, and I think for the most part, her comments on the police have been pretty awesome. Brianna Joy Gray recently interviewed Alex Vitale on our podcast about this, and they went into a lot of detail about it. Daria Liza did apologize for the tweets, which I don't think she should have done, but she has still continued to talk about defunding the police and diverting that money into services that actually prevent crime. And she's also been talking about things like diverting mental health cases away from police. Usually, I would expect a politician to entirely abandon these positions as soon as they started running, but I'm impressed that she has stood firm on this. When it comes to the issue of abolition, though, from what I've seen, she's mostly avoided the question. And my point here isn't to throw shade on her for that. She's a politician, and it's an extremely volatile conversation. That's kind of the part I want to talk about, though, because it's not an unusual thing for abolitionists to be avoiding that conversation. When it comes to the practical and logistical concerns that people have about abolition, we rarely have answers for people. Even if someone agrees with us that nonviolent people don't belong behind bars, everyone wants to know what we're going to do with the murderers. And I don't think there is like a generally accepted answer in the movement for this. Many of my Marxist friends will point out that poverty is the root of the vast majority of crime. And they're right about that, but even if poverty was entirely eradicated, there would still be crimes of passion and a very small percentage of the population that would be psychopathic or just driven to violence through mental illness. So this still leaves the question open about how serious violent crime would be dealt with without prisons. This has always been a question that has challenged me as well. Anarchists don't really have great answers either. Depending on which type of anarchist you're talking to, they might say something like mob justice or exile, which for the most part sounds almost as humane as our system is now. But I do actually think that there is the potential for a more humane and modern form of exile. The best idea that I've been able to come up with is house arrest. It's something that already exists, and it allows people to stay in their own environment and take visits from family and friends, and it doesn't put them in danger of abuse from other inmates and guards. When I meet other abolitionists or see people talking about it online, I always ask them if they think that house arrest is a good answer to the famous question about murderers. I want to know if it fits in with their framework of abolition. And usually I have this moment of excitement followed by disappointment when I find that somebody disagrees with me, because I'm thinking, awesome, this person has a better idea. I can't wait to hear it, because I'm going to have this new argument for all the bootlickers when they ask me this question. But then they ghost me if it's online, or if it's in real life, they start acting like I'm the bootlicker. Like I'm trying to defend prisons by asking them what their idea is. I'm not sure what the deal is, whether people are unwilling to put ideas forward because they worry about them being picked apart, or if they just imagine this sort of thing being worked out during some distant revolution that's probably never taking place. Regardless, we shouldn't run from this question. And people coming up with new ideas is always a good thing. Everyone is looking to theory from 100 or 200 years ago for answers on what's happening today. And don't get me wrong, I think that we have to read and understand both history and theory to come up with good ideas about how society should be organized. I'm just saying, when it comes to the actual logistics of how policies like abolition will be implemented, we're going to need to figure that out. And we're going to need to be able to explain that to people who haven't read the theory. With politicians, I get why they don't want to commit to an answer, because then they're tied into a policy position that they're going to have to defend forever, and that they're going to have to get other politicians to support them. Many of them want to play it safe and don't push things too far. That's much of my problem with electoralism in general, but I get it. When it comes to activists and organizers and people who yap on the internet, we shouldn't be holding back. We should start kicking around as many ideas as possible and start advocating for the best ones. Prisons are inhumane, and they actually make society less safe by traumatizing people more and creating more violence. People are not treated like human beings in those places. And that does not lead anywhere good. I understand that if some people are super dangerous, then they might need to be isolated. But that doesn't mean that we need to continue to have these prehistoric dungeons just for the sake of punishment. We should work to a world where restitution and rehabilitation replaces punishment. There's this old quote that goes something like, you can judge how civilized a society is by how well they treat their prisoners or how they treat their prisoners. And I think that is very true and says a lot about American society. But I'm curious how many of you have tried to come up with your own ideas about prison abolition and how it would work. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you've ever thought on. And also, let me know if you think that house arrest is compatible with abolition. I'm personally hoping that somebody can come up with a better idea than house arrest, because I don't love it. It's just the best one that I could come up with. When it comes to anarchism or anybody who just wants to advocate for a different type of society than the one we have now, even if you're not comfortable calling it that, even if you think we need just something different that doesn't even have a name yet, I don't think that we necessarily need to get locked into explaining every single little detail of how every mechanism of society will work in the future, because there are many different circumstances that change. There are many new technologies that come that make different things possible. There are also things that take place when everybody is trying to figure out the same thing together that we could never actually predict. And these ideas always end up being so much better. But still, some of these fundamental questions, I think it's important to at least have a start with people. And people who are asking in good faith or even bad faith, I don't think it matters, because I think a lot of us assume that these questions are coming at us in bad faith and we're like, oh, screw you. But also, many of us don't know how to answer it. So I think if we really want to advocate for a better world and for radically different solutions, then we need to generally assume that people are asking these kind of logistical questions in good faith, because it's going to help us figure out what the path is regardless. Anyway, that's my thinking on it. I'll catch you on the next video. Peace. Don't forget to check out my other videos. And if you have the ability and want to contribute, take a look at my Patreon, where you can get a subscription to my books and other cool stuff. I have some other videos to watch, so if you haven't seen them, go and binge on them. I'll see you next time.